Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Post in Black. My name is David Hunter Jr., and we are so excited and thrilled to have you for an episode where we celebrate Black excellence behind the lens. Today's episode is a very, very special one. We have one of the legends, a giant in the game of editing, Terilyn Shropshire. Now, that name may be familiar to you because she's worked on everything, all the projects that may have been some of your favorites, Jumping the Broom, Love and Basketball, personal favorite of mine. When They See Us, part of the editing team for that, and The Old Guard. Terilyn, thank you for joining us today on Post in Black.
Hey, thank you for asking me.
Oh, no, it is a pleasure. I'm thrilled to have you. And obviously, we'll get into how we kind of know each other through my brother. But first, before we start at Post in Black, we always like to start with an icebreaker to kind of ease into the thing. So the icebreaker is actually going to be on the bottom of your screen if you see it. What's the last new thing that you tried?
Wow. What was the last new thing? In a pandemic?
Yeah, it could be anything, a broad food, anything.
Oh my goodness. Wow. I guess the last new thing that I tried was oh my gosh. This one's a tough one for me.
It's tough, yeah.
Especially in a pandemic. Oh my goodness.
It's challenging.
Okay, I tried. I have this amazing woman who helps me at home, and she made something called Trigo. Trigo. So the last new thing I tried was Trigo, which is basically an incredibly lovely version of oatmeal. but it's made with I think it's made with bulgur. But It's called Trigo. So that's
called Trigo.
And of course it's food related because I'm just a foodie and I love to try new things. I would love to tell you that, oh yes, I've tried zip lining. And I tried, bungee jumping. But
right.
None of that right now.
Right. No. I mean, Trigo sounds it's an international dish or something, I assume, right?
Yes. Well, she's of a Latino origin, and so I think it's their version of what we would call, we have our versions of things. We call things chitlins. Somebody might call it something else.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Thank you. Yes. Yes. Take that smell out of my house. That's what I say.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No, that's good. I know that's not a difficult one, but it's a hard one because now you're such if you're like, who you are, you're so imaginative and creative. You're like, wait, what is the last new thing I tried? So you think of everything and then you're like, what's that one thing?
Yeah, it's true. And the thing is that and I love exploration and discovery. I think that's part of editing. And so it's been hard to do the things that you typically would want to do in this current climate that we're in. And I'm looking forward to when we can all kind of get out and rediscover the world and travel and experience life. And the next time you ask me this question, I'll have something a little more exciting to say.
We'll have zip lining and a video to go with it and everything.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, no, we appreciate you. And again, thank you for joining us today, Post in Black. As you kind of alluded to, Post in Black, we celebrate Black excellence behind the lens in the form of editing, sound design, sound production. And obviously your name, you kind of perks up ears when people hear your name associated with it. But I got introduced to you years ago through my brother, Daniel K. Hunter, who is the founder of Post in Black. He actually reached out to you, and that's how we got connected, and just finding out about all the work that you've done. I have to ask you just right off the bat, what was it like hearing an email or seeing an email from somebody just randomly asking you, can I pick your ear about the industry?
It really makes me feel encouraged and excited that people have that interest. I think for a long time, it's easy to feel very alone in this business at times. I mean, editing is a solitary type of business career anyway. I mean, you have obviously time where you collaborate with your filmmakers, but a lot of it is kind of very internal and kind of introspective. So when someone is interested in talking you through or having conversation about what it is, it says to me that people are recognizing that this is a craft that's worth learning about and
Right.
understanding. And so I'm always good about talking about something that I love so much.
Right, right. And what struck me too is he was just getting started and you took the time out. You didn't, okay, send me your resume. Look at that. You were just like, yeah, I'll be willing to talk. And that was meaningful. And we've done many interviews and your name has come up as kind of being that person that's always been that way. What made you get started in editing yourself? Because a lot of people look up to you, but we're going to go back a little bit and find out what actually got you started in editing yourself.
Well, I think it begins with all of us. We all start off as audience members and people that are sitting in a theater or at home experiencing and watching films. And I think that that's where it began with me. But I think what ultimately took me to the part where I started to recognize that editing was something that I wanted to do was when I started making films. And that really started once I got to college. And I was both a journalism major and a film major. And I think that with the requirements where we had to kind of go out and shoot our own stuff very early on and do everything before we actually, advanced to the next course where we had a crew or had a partner, you kind of get to know pretty quickly what you like and what you don't like or what you feel comfortable with. And though it was great to go out and, both write something, create it, go out and shoot it, I really found my place and space. And when I was back home in my student apartment, trying to figure out what I did out there when I went out and shot and figuring out to fix all the problems that I created for myself when I was shooting. Yeah. And that felt organic to me. And I think it's partly because, and I've talked about this before, that the writing of it and the rewriting and the problem solving, all of that, I think just feels really instinctual to me.
Okay.
And I think that's why I kind of gravitated towards editing. And it was something that I could spend hours doing and never really get tired. I mean, people often ask me, how do you watch the same thing over and over again? And I don't know. I just find that I have the ability, just like there are those of us who watch the same movie over and over again. Yeah. I think that that's something that I find really easy to do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's big. And that's a common theme. Sometimes we're hearing from our editors where it's like, you just know it. And there's something that connects you to want to have that control and be in that room to put it all together like a puzzle. Now, I mentioned again, my brother, going back to him, you were somebody he could look up to and look towards for guidance or for inspiration in terms of how to proceed in this industry. When you were first getting started, you mentioned obviously directing and making your own films and then going to college for it. Was there anybody, once you really said, okay, I like this part of the industry, was there anybody that you were able to look to say, let me look at what they do? Or is there something that connects you? Because you're that person for so many, but who was that person for you?
And that means so much to me because I honestly feel when I was coming up that I didn't have that. I mean, I think what I had was I had films to watch. And then once I watched the films, I would go, I would look at those directors, but I would also look at the editors who were doing that particular work. I don't think it was really until I started getting into editing rooms and working with the editors who became my mentors, who gave me those opportunities to try cutting a scene, and watching them. And did I really start to feel like there were people that I could look to. And I still remember the first time I saw the first Black editor I worked with was someone named Earl Watson Jr., who's since passed away. I think people know Earl the most from Boomerang, which is one of my favorite classics. Yeah, right. Classic. And I remember meeting when I met him for the first time, it was like, wow, there's somebody that looks like me. And I talk about the moonwalk I did when I was at Paramount working on something called The Two Jakes. And I literally walked by a cutting room, peripheral vision, saw a Black person in the next room and literally kind of went like this. Yeah. And that was George Bowers, and he was cutting Harlem Nights.
Wow.
But you could count the people that looked like us on one hand back then. And what I'm really excited about, obviously, right now is that there are, again, tomorrow there will be more of us. Today there are more of us,
Yeah.
and it means a lot to me that people look to me that way, because I know what it's like not to have that.
Yeah, yeah. Now you mentioned some really some good names that people may be familiar with or may be more familiar with their work. But I wanna jump back just a little bit more again.
Mhm.
You're getting from college, now you have this editing, the bug, and this is what you want to do. Knowing what you want to do and actually being able to go pursue it are two different things. And then getting into that door is a different thing. Are you from Los Angeles? Did you move to LA? What was it like getting that first internship or job for you? Those steps to get to where start building that career.
Yeah, I'm not from LA, and
Mhm.
I actually, just quick, born in New York. My father moved my mom and I to West Africa when I was 6. I was there for about 5 years, and then we moved to Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Wow.
And I didn't come
Big
out
difference.
here. Big difference. I've been around. I've been
Yeah.
around the world a bit. But I came out here to go to college, and I stayed out here once I graduated. And even once I graduated, I didn't immediately go into editing. I mean, I was editing other friends who I went to school with, their whatever videos they were doing on the side,
Mhm.
but I didn't jump right into editing. I worked as a production. Well, I was a page at first for
Okay. Yeah.
shows. If people know what pages were, we're kind of glorified ushers
Yeah.
for shows that had audience, that you had to bring audience
Yeah.
in. And I worked as a production assistant, a production secretary, production coordinator, but still, again, doing that kind of side editing thing.
Mhm.
And I think that what really got me to focus on trying to pursue editing as a paid career was there was a writer's strike,
Wow. Yeah.
and the town went down. And I didn't really feel, also, it was also a crossroads for me because I really wasn't feeling that I was finding my way in terms of what I really wanted to do and what brought me joy. And so at that time, I really began working towards getting in a cutting room.
Okay.
And it wasn't easy because I had only edited 16 millimeter back then. This was before digital.
Yeah.
And I had to find the opportunity to work in a cutting room where I could handle 35, where you could get to know people. And what really helped me was I had friends who had since moved on to different parts of their career, and I could call them and say, "Hey, what are you working on? Is there an editing room?
Yeah.
Is there any way you can introduce me to the editing team?" I think sometimes people just want to get right to the editor, right? But I think that the thing that you need to remember is that there's a team there, and sometimes it's just getting to know the post PA or getting to know the assistant editor. And then you kind of find your way in. And I did that where I worked for free. I had to get in the union, right? I had to, I mean, I had to hustle a bit, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
In
That's what it
terms
sounds like.
of, yeah, I mean, just getting into a cutting room where I could handle 35, and then getting into a cutting room where I could build my hours in a non-union kind of situation. So I had enough hours to apply to the union.
Yeah.
And so I think that it really takes a lot of, I say, patience and perseverance to
Mhm.
navigate this industry, but it can happen, right? We know that
Yeah.
it can happen because we see it happening,
Right,
right?
right. No, those are great nuggets and wisdom pearls, I would say, in terms of perseverance, because you mentioned a lot of the things that people don't realize. They see the end game. They see, jumping the broom. They see love and basketball. They see those classes, but they don't see those hours that you put in earlier, and maybe some of those jobs that you did that you weren't paid, but you needed the footage to kind of showcase your work. Now,
Exactly.
I'm gonna jump in a little bit because we know the titles, we know the names. What would you say has been uh, your kind of structure in terms of editing? What you put into editing when you go into it? We know about these athletes that train, and LeBron James has this whole $1 million budget. He has a hyperbolic chamber. what chamber do you have before you go in to editing and kind of get into the mindset of, okay, I have to break down this piece and really put my A game on this?
Love that question. For me, it starts with the script. Okay. And people will say to me, I mean, I've said this before, the first time I read a script, I watch it. You know, I find a space and I find a time where I can do it uninterrupted, where I can do it in one sitting as if I'm in the movie. Like if you imagine you're going into a movie theater and you're about to sit down and you're about to watch a movie, that's the way I think you should read a script. Because and you hope that the pages turn and it gets you into it and you don't have to stop and turn the page back, or there's nothing that confuses you when you're reading it or you get tripped up, because those are little signs that maybe there's things that ultimately, when this becomes a movie, haven't been dealt with yet, or potentially problematic, or maybe you're confused. Why are you confused? So I start myself by just kind of immersing myself in whatever adventure they're asking me to be a part of. And then the other thing is just doing my homework about who the filmmaker is. If it's somebody I know, it's easier, right? If I've worked with it. But let's say, you're up for a situation where this is your first thing. And how do you prepare for that? Well, you prepare by knowing, again, the script, knowing the filmmaker or the person that you're about to work with or interview with, the producers, the people involved, what have they done before? Just having that kind of that knowledge. I think it's important. I think it's important too to I don't know if it's something that is a particular genre, maybe it's helpful to kind of watch other things in that genre, but it's a case by case situation. And then I after I watch the script, I go back in and I talk about or think about the things that I would want to talk about once it's time for me to go in, let's say for an interview. Let's say I don't have the gig yet, right? Right. And so I think part of it is that that everybody who's stepping into that room, if they've gotten the interview, you can pretty much guess they can cut, right? Yeah, you're all coming in on that equal level. They would not be bringing you in for the interview if you weren't someone who could do the job. So what is going to set you apart from the other person? And in that discussion. So those are all the things that I start to kind of train myself. And training isn't the right word, but it's almost like kind of getting yourself into your head game, right? Yeah. And preparing yourself to be able to communicate and talk about story with the director. And sometimes you will go in and talk with seasoned directors, and sometimes you will talk with directors who've never interviewed other craftspeople. This is their first gig. Yeah. They may not even know what to ask you as an editor. Right. So those are all the kind of things that I prep for.
No, I didn't want to jump in on the end. It's almost like you have to be prepared to ask questions as a director or as a editor as well, because if you're dealing with somebody, even an experienced director, they may not be thinking about something in particular, and you say, "Hey, have you thought about this?" So you're bringing it to the table. You've covered so much just in what you just said in terms of the responsibilities of an editor. First of all, people think of editor as just putting together the project and getting all the footage, but you first mentioned reading the scripts, breaking it down, then talking with the director and building that relationship. And somebody that you've worked with many times, and I guess there is a strong relationship with there, is Gina Prince Bythewood. How did that relationship actually begin, and you working with her? How did that even start?
Yeah, it began with, I guess it was a call. I probably from somebody, I don't remember whether my agent contacted me or maybe her assistant from her contacted me, but she had heard about me through Spike Lee, who was one of the producers who was familiar with my work and knew me. And she had seen Eve's Bayou, which she was really impressed by. And so I got sent a script, and if you can imagine what it was like to read the script for Love and Basketball for the first time, it was, again, it was like, I always think about rare air. when you are reading something that you recognize is about people that you knew or grew up with, or it scares you when you read scripts like that, because you have to be part of the job so badly, and yet you've got to go in there and be cool and be confident, and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I got this script, right?
Right.
Gina is like, you don't want to ever play poker with Gina Prince Bythewood, because she is not going to give you any kind of tell. Right.
Man.
I went into that interview and I was, started talking and probably was rambling on like I am now, and just talking about the script and how much I loved it, and all the things that I thought were great about it. And I don't quite even remember what she might have asked me. I was just so excited. But I do try to also ask them questions about what are they, what do they find? What do they think are going to be challenging about the journey? I try to kind of get a sense of often what other crew people are they looking to work with, and what do they have anything that they feel like is going to be challenging? Those kinds of things. But at the end of the interview, it was kind of like I had no idea what she was thinking. So I left, and then the minute the door closes, of course, you think of a gagillion things that you wish you had said, right?
Right.
And so I ended up writing her a letter afterward, kind of, a thank you letter for the opportunity to meet with her. I had a couple more thoughts I wanted to share. And she says to this day, and we argue this, but she says to this day it was a 6-page letter. And I'm thinking, how could I have written 6 pages? There's just no way I could have written 6 pages. I want to see this letter, because I really, maybe it was closer to 3 or 4. Anyway, I think by the time we get to a certain age, it's going to be a 20-page letter.
Right.
Anyway, she really appreciated that I took the time to talk more. And I wasn't the most experienced person that she interviewed. And I think but she saw that there was a passion there. And she was, and she had seen, again, my work, and she decided to afford me that opportunity. And and it's really those filmmakers that have made a difference in my career. The Anne Gerso, who gave me my first break, and Casey Lemons. She could have probably, I know she could have hired other editors who were more experienced with me at the time. But often, and that's where I think young editors need to recognize, yes, you may not have that long list of credits, right? But if you show a passion, if you express yourself and communicate in such a way, and really go in there and hopefully show a director why it should be you.
Right.
Even though you may not have, the most credits of people coming in, I think at times it can make a difference. Right. Not always, but I think that sometimes it can break through.
It can definitely break through. And you said something in there as well with everything. That's an amazing story with this Gina Prince, and just that they having that poker face. But you said something about setting yourself apart and what's making me different from the other editors. And it's really funny how tied together this industry is, because I came into it, my brother came into it through post-production. I came in through it in front of the camera by acting. And how we always say, oh yeah, it's what's going to set me apart for this role, what's going to set me apart from the other actors. And how even for my friends who are directors, they're telling me the same thing. My friends who are writers on shows now are saying the same thing. And now you've been experiencing the game. You're saying, no, it's how do I set myself apart? So it's really your unique skill set, your gift, and just pretty much you are the difference in terms of like, okay, this relationship works. And obviously, a few films later, it's worked, Love and Basketball. Obviously you mentioned some of the projects. What has been your favorite project to work on? Because you mentioned a lot of these great names that you worked with, but what has been something that is like, and that's a hard list to choose from, because I can tell you my favorites, but I'm sitting here saying, what is your favorite, or something that you say, yeah, I really like that. I really love working on that project. That was good.
Well, it's not hard to say, but it's smart not to say.
Right. There
Um,
you
because,
great
because
answer.
I mean, look, they each, each have an profoundly, strong place in my heart, because
Mhm.
everything that I've done with each one of them has prepared me for what's next. And I
Mhm.
think and that's what a craft does, right?
Right.
And so I think that in some ways, the projects that I previously, like when I talk about the projects that I've done with Casey and the projects I've done with Gina, where we've kind of gone through a journey together to get them on screen to where people can say now, oh, we love this film. Especially young in our career. I mean, it's a very nerve-wracking thing to try, because you're always feeling, and this doesn't go away, by the way, you always feel
Mhm.
like you have to get it right. We have to get it right because we're only going to get this one shot to get it right, right? Whereas, there may be other people that get other opportunities. I feel like we are not necessarily afforded that. So in some ways, I think that even the early films like the Eve's Bayou and the Love and Basketballs, I mean, we didn't know then that they would have the life that they have now and the
Mhm.
appreciation that they would have now. We just knew that we had to get it right. And so I think that then as you kind of continue to build the career and you start doing more work and you have more confidence and you know that we've got this, but yet you're always kind of waiting for what the next gauntlet's going to be that's thrown down, right? And
Right.
so in some ways, and I know you've heard this before, but some ways my favorite project is the next one,
Yeah.
because I think in some ways it's like, for me, in my love of movies, it's like, what story do I get to tell next?
Yeah.
What challenge is someone going to give me that I'm going to, show that I'm capable of moving through, right? And so even in doing the Old Guard, what was fun about the Old Guard was
Great
I
movie.
grew up like many kids, like watching action movies and, all kinds of Star Wars and Harry Potters and, whatever that thing is that kind of geeks you out. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And wanting to be a part of those types of films, Marvel movies, and,
Mhm.
and at the same time, not necessarily being what the industry would consider the obvious choice, right?
Right.
Those are anointed to others, right? But then when Gina said, "Look, I'm going to do one of these, and we're going to do it together, and I want you to cut it and be a part of it," it was really, really exciting. It was an
Mhm.
exciting um, question to be asked,
Yeah.
to participate in something like that, and then to go through it was great. And so in some
I
ways,
I enjoyed
yeah,
that film too. I mean, there's so many things in it, but there's great acting, but great story. I was intrigued. It was very captivating, and just knowing again, I'm like, wow, I don't know Terry personally, but I know her, and knowing somebody that worked on a project like that is just inspiring. And even though I'm not even in the field of post production and editing, you mentioned it as well. Your next project is usually the one that you're looking forward to. With such a career that you've had in the industry and working on so many great projects, what are some of the things that you're looking forward to doing in the future for yourself, or even in post production? Because obviously, Post and Black, we're highlighting Black people behind the lens, and so this industry obviously is something that we still don't know a lot about from the outside looking in. What is something that you're looking to do in the future, either career-wise or personally, for the industry itself?
well, I think that I want to keep obviously telling really great stories. I
Mhm.
want to continue to push past the limitations that people want to put on us as to what we can and can't do.
Mhm.
Because even though I've been doing this for a long time and I like to think it gets easier, it doesn't mean that I still don't have challenges showing people who I am and what I'm capable of, and not being limited in genre as
Mhm.
far as things. So I want to keep pushing through that. I want to continue to help and see more of us doing this.
Yeah.
And and it's happening. and people are getting up the ranks, and people are getting more opportunities. And I'm really excited to see that. And I really want to keep doing what I can to promote and support and advocate all of that. And the other thing that I really want to start seeing is that now that there are more of us doing it, there needs to be a push towards more of us getting noticed and promoted for the work. And especially when it comes to this kind of, like I said, award season, I think that there's still a certain degree of firewall with respect to publicity and getting our names out there and getting our work promoted in such a way that, it can be recognized. Right. Yeah. And I really feel like it's time to kind of do what we can as artists to, again, I use the word a lot, self-advocate, publicize, promote our work.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that's happening to the degree it should be.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And we're gonna wrap it up here in a minute or two, but just want to touch on that part as well. Even as storied as a career that you're having and going to continue to have as an editor, you're still talking about some of the challenges in terms of being, maybe placed in a certain genre or a type of film. What do you feel like can break those doors down? Because if people who are underneath of you are talking about that, but then you're at a maybe have a longer resume and still are dealing with some of the same issues, what is going to be the thing that breaks those doors open?
Well, I think it's the people who are making the decisions and the hiring and the vetting. I think that, again, I got the old guard because Gina, a Black female director, was hired to do a superhero type movie. And right. I think more of that needs to happen. And then when those filmmakers get those opportunities, they're bringing on their talented, very talented editors that look like us with them. And that we also are getting meetings at companies like Marvel and companies, like Bad Robot and companies like Legendary. Or, I mean, if those are the type of films you want to make, or A24, whatever you want to make. And I think it's really important, especially for those editors who are making their way up, that they request those types of meetings, just general meetings. Doesn't have to be about a specific job. I want to go in and meet with the head of Paramount or the post person at Paramount or the post person at Sony, just so they get to know me. It doesn't have to be for anything. And those things can happen, but you have to ask, you have to go out and request those meetings.
Right. No, that's big. And that's something that you just got to really take, I guess, the initiative to really, do that. And then you have that connector. Like you said, if your director gets in and they have a little bit more power, a little bit more pull, you got to bring some people in, and then those open up more doors. For those that are climbing up, and there's people smiling, watching this, probably jotting it down on their phones or whatever they're doing, taking all the notes. What are some resources, or, even, we have YouTube, we have so much technology, and then things have grown even with us being in the COVID state, being at home. So there's more available to us. But what are some things that people can do to kind of get themselves started, or to make a name for themselves? Or, maybe they're not sending an email correctly, or maybe their resume isn't formatted. What are some things that they can do to put themselves in position to win?
Well, I really rely on my, I use the word tribe, but I rely on the people who, are my friends, my patriots. I still go to them for advice. The directors I work with, producers I work with. I encourage people to get involved with Film Independent and Array Crew. I just feel like talking with one another is really important. Communicating with one another is important, and letting people it's always wonderful to hear from people that they appreciate my work, and I like to let other people know that I appreciate theirs. And I don't mean just other editors, cinematographers, Kira Kelly. I mean, people who are out there, production designers. I mean, we're all trying to get to the same place. And often we hear about things before we do, right? Yeah. So, it's important to communicate, cross-pollinate yourself with other filmmakers and other people from different crafts, like who in terms of trying to kind of keep up with what's going on.
Right.
And it's not, and I don't find it competitive, by the way. I mean, I am as excited by other people and other editors getting these opportunities because, again, it only helps the rest of us. Right. Only helps the rest of us. So
no, it is shown, and truly, we thank you for your time today. It has been just a gem to have you on. And again, personally speaking, I remember literally talking to my brother, being in the room at the apartment. He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to meet Terilyn Shropshire. She's editing at Jump in the Broom." I was like, "What?" Like we were just going crazy. We were so happy and like we were hyped up because that was a really big thing. Even though I wasn't going, it was a really big thing for us at that time. And we cannot thank you enough for just, that validation, that belief that you poured out into my brother when he was first starting out, and that blog. And now years later, you're still pouring out to so many people we've interviewed have mentioned your name as a reference. And it shows that you are, cross-pollinating and helping out. Before we get you out of here, is there anything that you're working on now that we should be on the lookout for or coming up that you want people to do, or where can they stay in contact with you with?
Yeah, well, I mean, I am on Twitter and at TA Shrop is where you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm finishing up on a pilot with Gina that she's doing for a limited series called Women of the Movement that Marissa Jo Serrar is show running, and it is a limited series. The first series of 6 are about Mamie Till, mother of Emmett Till. And we're hoping that people will tune in. It'll probably air sometime this summer. Mm-hmm. And I think that what MJ wants to do is kind of feature a specific woman of the movement. Hopefully, maybe it's the first, and that will continue with other women who, whose lives have become involved. In this case, it's a civil rights movement, but at the same time, obviously what's been going on now, there's a lot of mothers who have lost their children to, violence and so just
powerful, timely piece. Yeah.
And she was a pretty amazing woman. So I feel very lucky to just have been able to kind of work on the pilot on that one. So, and we'll see what's next.
Yeah. No. I'm excited. I'm getting excited. You talked about seeing your project and reading it and getting that goosebumps and saying, I want to be a part of. If there's something that you're working on, I know I have to watch it. I have to see it. And maybe one day I'll be in it.
It would be an honor to edit you.
That would be awesome. I would love that. So thank you again, Taralyn, for joining us. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Post in Black. Be sure to like us on all of our social media platforms and subscribe to us to make sure you stay up to date with everything that's happening. We will see you next time on another episode of Post in Black.